I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpm.fm to discover more.
Hi, I'm Andy Karl. Welcome to the Theater Podcast with Alan Seals.
Some girls go out with pants that cling. You won't leave home without your purity ring. You don't tempt fate with spaghetti straps. You're a girl who keeps it all under wraps. 'Cause modest is hottest underneath it all, safe and suspended.
Welcome to the Theater Podcast with Alan Seals. I'm Alan, your host, bringing you another all-new episode, a deep dive into the world of Broadway with one of its most versatile performers. Today's guest is Andy Karl, a three-time Tony nominee and Olivier Award winner who first joined us all the way back in episode 4. That is single-digit 4. Since then, Andy has continued to wow audiences with all of his performances that include iconic roles in Groundhog Day to Rocky and Pretty Woman, and even his latest show-stopping performance as Pastor Bill O'Keefe in Teeth, the musical. This conversation is packed with inspiring insights as Andy reflects on his journey, how his approach to theater has evolved over time, especially even since we've last talked since episode 4, and the lessons he's learned while even revisiting Groundhog Days years later, because he just got to do it again over in the West End. So as now this is the final episode, the 4th of 4 of the Teeth the Musical takeover, we of course dive into the fascinating world of Teeth and what makes it push boundaries on stage. So don't forget to follow me on social media, check out my Patreon or Spotify for the video version of this episode, and now everyone please enjoy this episode with Andy Karl again.
My throat is dry and I can't get air and I don't know why, but this word is there.
Today's guest is a Broadway powerhouse, whose career continues to shine brighter with each passing year. Ding! Known for his Olivier Award-winning turn as Phil Connors in Groundhog Day and has critically acclaimed performances in shows like Rocky and Pretty Woman the musical, he has proven time and time again that he's one of theater's most versatile and compelling performers. He first joined me on the Theater Podcast way back in episode 4, single digits, people, 4, where we explored his journey from Baltimore to Broadway and beyond. So if you want to hear the full backstory, go back to episode 4. And since then, his career has flourished with exciting projects in theater, TV, film. He can now be seen as Pastor Bill O'Keefe in the off-Broadway hit Teeth, the musical. Andy Karl, welcome back to the Theater Podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be back. What episode is this?
This is gonna be, I don't have an exact number for this one yet. This is gonna be probably late 360s.
360.
Yes. Today,
from 4 to 360?
As we're recording right now, I just dropped 364 with Leah Delaria.
Wow.
Yes. So
we're in the high numbers, and we haven't been speaking in a long time. I've missed
I wanted to thank you, first of all, because before, barely knew each other back then, I just texted you on a whim, and I was like, hey, I'm starting this really silly idea. It's called a podcast, and we're going to talk about some silly things. You want to do it? And you didn't even ask anything. You're like, sure, I'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, you're part of the reason that we are now almost 400 episodes deep.
Was that pre-COVID?
Yeah, that was 2018,
wow.
man. That was summer of 2018.
Before podcasts were really cranking.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the only thing people could do. You were ahead of the game.
Dude, there was a microphone shortage during COVID and everything. It exploded. It was a thing. But yeah, you've had quite the journey since we last spoke, right?
Yeah, what was I doing?
Yeah, that was Pretty Woman, I believe, in 2018.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I get, yeah, then COVID hit. Yeah, that was sort of like the last Broadway show I did before COVID. And it was interesting coming off of Groundhog Day and going into Pretty Woman. Very, very different roles, very accessing a different part of what I do. I think Phil Connors was just, it was such a performance that required so many things, including just deep diving into character substance. And Pretty Woman is like, I better just sing pretty, look good in a suit, and make sure that the lead looks good. so it's like, share these scenes that it's like, it's not my journey of a show. My character's journey goes through definitely something interesting, but I think it's like the title is called Pretty Woman, not pretty pretty Andy.
pretty Richard Gere character guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun to watch. And yeah, you're right. His Groundhog Day is very, very different. But Groundhog Day kind of like changed you, I think, emotionally and physically for a while, right? Because you actually, like, it was during previews when you tore your ACL, right? During Groundhog Day?
It was like the two nights before opening, which it really was bad timing. Yeah, that was a real like mess with my head moment, because I was just trying to push, like I wrapped up my leg, and when you have an ACL tear, you just have no stability on a leg, and you're so I got back in for opening night, and I had like maybe a few shows off in between there, and then until I could actually make sure that I'm taking care of my leg. But I actually made it through, pushed through, and by a couple of months later, I was like, no strap on my leg at all. Just my muscles had gained a certain amount of strength around that area. I just had to be careful about moving laterally and that stuff. So on top of thinking about that show, on top of having so much physical activity and mental activity and vocal activity, I had to constantly think of the things that I'm doing that won't disturb my leg, which sucked, because it was like when having another thing to think of on top of all the things that I am thinking of, a very physical, demanding show. And I guess that was that proved I could push through a lot. And I think I had done that before with things like Rocky. I could just push, like if I push through, I'll be fine, and climb the mountain and be strong. But it made me take my eye off the prize of what that show is really about. It's about community. It's about looking beyond yourself. It's looking into bigger things in your life and being selfless. And it's weird to try to be selfless when you're only thinking about your leg half the time. So it was constant adjustments of thought, which was fantastic when I could go back to the UK in 2024 for the revival. And sort of have all the pressures of, getting a show up, making it a big hit, trying to do all the Tony Award stuff, thinking about my leg, doing all this stuff, and, trying to promote myself in a certain way. I could just sit back and enjoy, with a lot of sweat and tears and emotion within that show, but I could enjoy all of it, enjoy the people that were in the cast, and enjoy my time on stage. COVID really reset that for me, as like, once you do this stuff long enough, you start to get a little bit of a callus of like, what works, what doesn't work, what am I worth? Your ego starts to chip in and tell you, like, how you're going to be in the theater, and how people look at you, and what am I really doing here? COVID gave me a chance to reconnect with why I love what I would do, because it was not there for us to do anymore. And so we had to create our own stages via Zoom and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it was just a blessing to go back into it. Really a blessing. One that I is pretty rare, is very rare. I can't imagine a person, playing a part and then coming back 8 years later, 6 years later, and
was it really
doing it again. It was 6 years. It was
6.
I mean, it must have been like 8 years from the very beginning.
Right.
It's 6 years between Broadway and UK revival. So
that's insane. Yeah, I think I told you this the first time we chatted, back in episode 4. I blew out my ACL playing soccer, and then the doctor said, you can keep playing, but you're probably going to hurt it worse, right? They actually didn't recommend it one way or another, gave me the choice. And I said, I don't want to hurt it worse. So I can't imagine. I mean, what were you doing on stage, though, to get like that lateral movement? Because most football players get tackled from the side and then they tear the ACL. I was running full speed one direction, tried to cut back almost the exact opposite way I was running to get around a guy who was coming up behind me. And that's when my leg went boop. So I can't imagine that kind of force happening on stage, though.
Oh, I was running. I had done, that show. First of all, we had a rake stage. Secondly, I was done the show so many times and running and leaping over somebody in order to catch somebody falling from a ladder, and then catch a cat falling from the ceiling. Very active. At that point in the show, I'm running across stage in full speed, just trying to save everybody's day. Once you do something 1,000 times, and when I did this, leap over a person, a complete leap over a person, and landing wrong, it's just the force of it just said, nope. I'm sure people know out there, when you watch a Broadway show, it is very active. There is some people who are in the best shape that people can be.
Show bodies, that's what they call them.
It's because it's a sport in a lot of ways, because you have the energy required to give the performance you're giving, but also what the asks are on trying to make something exciting, and what your energy level does when you're on stage, when that adrenaline is pumping and you're like, I want to give the best performance I have ever given every night. And you get that. It's like once the lights hit you and you're full out, as Jerry Mitchell would say. And I think that certainly assists in people getting injured if they're not taking care of themselves. And, I didn't know to take care of my ACL. I'm not sure how I got at taking care of my ACL.
Yeah, there's really not a lot you can do. You can get strength in a ligament.
Yeah, but after that, with all the recovery, and now I know what I'm dealing with, and I know I take care of certain pieces of my body. My back was hurting the other day because I do a lot of knee spins in this show and cartwheels, and I was like, okay, time to lay off, but also stretch, get the PT, make sure you're lifting weights in a certain way.
Start doing plank.
These shows, Broadway, any show, it doesn't have to be on Broadway, it could be anywhere. 8 shows a week is going to wreak havoc on your body.
Any repetitive motion, sure, yeah. So talk to me about opening night, Groundhog Day on Broadway versus opening recently in the UK. You said, by the way, you're like, yeah, it was back in 2024. We're still in 2024, dude. It's not over yet. You can't take 2024 away from me.
It feels like a year ago, and it almost
right.
is.
No, like you said, that you opened on Broadway in pain, unfocused.
Sorry, it was 2023. You're absolutely right. It was 2023.
Right?
Yep.
Right? Okay, there we go. 2023.
I remember celebrating
I found this
New Year's. Oh, there's Siri.
Hey,
Siri thought I was talking to her.
Mr. Siri.
The differences between those two performances.
Yeah, just like because you could focus in the UK, you could concentrate and enjoy it.
On the exterior, the show tightened. We had one or two less cast members to tighten the size of the ensemble. Things that you didn't need, they started cutting these like characters. It was sort of not necessary. There was like one or two characters that were not quite necessary, combining some, and they were actually good moves. It wasn't trying to reduce the size of the show. It was just trying to see what's important. There was a constant, revolves on the stage on Broadway. There were 5 different revolves that revolved in 5 different directions at any given time. Yeah. So you can imagine like the legs were always under some sort of duress. So those were cut, and honestly, you couldn't even notice. It was a really good idea, but the practical version of it is like it only enhanced the show as far as like technical wizardry, but it also created us having to use more of the space upstage and downstage instead of bringing a lot of stuff downstage in front for the audience to see. So it created a little depth with the show that I think Groundhog Day has a little bit more of an intimacy to it than using the entirety. So in cutting them, it actually helped, and also tightening up some of the jokes and the dialogue. Now it wasn't vastly different. Same outfits, same characters, minus like 2 characters that showed up early on and went away. But on the I guess the picture of me doing it 6 to 8 years later, my adult brain got more adult and more able to look at things, having a bigger, an expanded way of looking at things in my brain, thanks to Groundhog Day, starting that in the early days. And now my brain is developed in ways that we're able to grasp onto things I hadn't seen before within the show, which I think is beautiful about the show, is that you can look at it from several different perspectives in your life and draw from anything. You can really draw from anything in that show. It really is it's something deeply profound, and anybody that plays Phil Connors will know what I'm talking about. There's things you need to grasp onto in your life to expand. But in any case, I had grown as a person. I was now coming in with a different attitude. I was like, I just need to freaking enjoy this and ride this incredible wave of show and And it is not about me. It is about the audience. It is about the cast members. It is about me living through this character and doing it as funny and as proud as I possibly can, and finding all the bits and the interesting things that are about it, and keep writing it and play every night and be open to playing every night and making people feel like they're watching a live performance. And every night I sang this song called Seeing You at the end of the show, written by Tim Minchin, obviously, and just a profound song about taking in the things of your life and looking at people every day and seeing something new every day. Is that I sang that first verse now directly to the audience. I was like, you guys are here, and I was so happy that you're here to watch this show, and I will never not perform it that way again, should I ever perform it.
And did that come from partially, I mean, you mentioned getting older, but did it partially come from just being without your livelihood, being without your industry for as long as we were when Broadway shut down, when COVID hit? Because I think that puts so much in perspective for people.
Mm-hmm. I think there was a lot of perspective for a lot of people. But also, like, I had just the stuff that I had done on Broadway seemed like there was so much, it was so exhausting, and so much mishigas and Tony Awards, and let's go for the, and everything's got to, do all the interviews and make sure you're staying on top of things so the show can keep going. It's all like on your shoulders. And I mean, it's kind of, you have to take that junk off of you. And I guess I was trying to live up to something that doesn't really exist. Is that, it only depends on how good the show is. It only depends on how nice I am. It's not going to be about, like, some interview is really going to change the going to get us all those tickets that we need to, or some Tony Award is going to make the show last forever. It rarely does. It just depends on what people truly respond to. So I think I just took the pressure of all that stuff off and wanted to do something beautiful. And once you allow yourself to do that, and it happened in the UK again when we were there, the people just came in droves. We broke box office records at the Old Vic Theater that, from like that had ever been. We broke all the records. We had an attendance level that was incredible, including people that had come back and seen the show from, 6 years before, which is beautiful. And to hear people's, what had happened to them since then was really interesting. I met a woman who 6 years earlier was at a crossroads in her life and had seen Groundhog Day in the UK and wasn't sure if she was going to take a job or or wasn't sure what she was doing in her life. And something about the show really connected with her in saying, we only have this time to really be profoundly proactive in our lives, and we have to make choices that are going to affect us in the best way. And it changed her direction. And I was proud that she was now like some manager of a Fortune 500 company. Like and she attributes that to coming and seeing Groundhog Day, which I think is pretty amazing. And just hearing stories from, young people that were still discovering themselves in life, and the show really connected to them, and Tim Minchin's music really connects to them, and where they are now and how they've found strength in knowing that, they're not there. There's a song called Hope in Groundhog Day, and it's a two-way street. It's it's a hope about killing himself, but he can't kill himself. It's sort of, he's at his wit's end that he can't do the thing that he just wants to do. He just wants to die, and when he realizes he can't die, and he realizes through the help of Rita's character that he can actually change the way he's thinking to take advantage of the day as opposed to thinking of it as a hindrance upon himself, he is therefore able to change his entire perspective. And I think that has something profound to say to especially young people who are coming to see the show and dealing with, trying to find their way in life and wanting to give up on things. But then, we're not going to. If you just survive past this one point, you have the ability to find the beauty in your life.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the episode. After I saw it, what I kind of walked away from was, or what I walked away with it from was, a perspective saying like in the moment there's things that could be bad that are happening, and in the moment you have a choice to either like take a good route, take route door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3, and they're all going to lead to different things, and you ultimately have no control over that, but you have to roll with what comes with it. So it helped me just sort of put things in perspective and let negative things that are out of my control sort of slip off my back a little bit easier.
That's really nice. I like that. that.
Yeah. Because it was just easier to be like, you know what? There are a million things happening to a million different people at a million different moments, and I just happen to be this tiny little speck that's happening in this big space-time continuum. So who am I to complain about this stuff, right?
Yeah. It's hard to keep that perspective sometimes, especially when things seem so daunting. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I think, let's see. So this was 6 years ago, and then, podcast 2018, that was 6 years ago. Yeah, so my almost 10-year-old was then almost 4, right? And so, I was just having this conversation with him the other day. He was like, there's like a billion stars in the universe. Do you think there's aliens? I was like, of course. Little green men, I don't know, but I think there's life on other planets. There's just got to be by matter of statistics, right? And so, it's funny to see like all the different possibilities. I believe in the multiverse. I believe in all this stuff. I like to think time is not linear. You get so philosophical with this seemingly simple little comedy that we like to call Groundhog Day. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, you can go as far as you want with it, but you can also like just look at the surface and see how funny it is.
It's just a funny
thing.
Just
the concept of the idea of like reliving the same day over and over again, but you somehow can take advantage of it, and then you sometimes get lost in it, and then sometimes you can use it as something to take you beyond your circumstances. I think it's beautiful.
Well, since 2018, of course, you've done Blue Bloods, you've done The Good Fight, you've done Prodigal Son, you were in a film called Hereafter. You've done a bunch of stuff, but then now you are back at New World Stages in Teeth, as we said in the introduction. So tell me about Pastor Bill O'Keefe. Where do you approach this evangelical mastermind?
It's a role I've never really played before, which is great. That's the first challenge. I think it was my first question was asking the director, like, what's the tone here? How far is this camp, or is this like, because I'm reading it, and as I read it, he's pretty serious about what he believes, and it's also some of the lines the pastor uses. To hell with you, demon spawn! Go join your mother in the lake of fire. Things like these are like way over the top Michael R. Jackson dialogue. Which how does one play this seriously? But I guess it's the show is so based in like this horror, cult, comedy, musical mix that we're writing a lot of lines with everything. So I guess and I was asking for tone, and I don't think Sarah didn't really explain it, because she could only explain like, well, we have like fire, and we have lakes, and we have these great effects that are happening on stage, and we have severed penises coming down from the ceiling, and it's like, oh, okay, so these are the tones we have to play with. I think the thing for me with Pastor was like, it's just like any character that seems like a quote unquote villain. He just truly believes in everything that he's saying, and so he's blocked off his mind from accepting anything that's awful about what he's doing. But he truly believes he's leading his community and these young PKG girls into making sure that they're keeping on the path of God and being their savior by suppressing their sexual anything sexual that they're doing or thinking, and keeping everybody under a tight fist with fear Father God. I am the word of Father God, and therefore you should listen to everything I have to say, which is how many times have we heard that is the problem with religion. So I just think he truly believes in that through whatever his past is, which was obviously troubled, and the way he treats his son is just a reflection on how he was treated. So through his suppression upon this town and upon these young people, out of that grows a beast. Out of all that suppression comes a lot of something will come out of all that suppression, and what happens is the teeth come out of it, and everybody goes wild. And so I think there's like It's taking the ideology from being a pastor and taking the ideology from something that grows out of it and becomes bigger than the religion. That's sort of what that show is about. So I guess like I just have to play the truth of all the things that I'm saying.
Did you see the movie when it came out in 2007 or any point after that?
I've seen it after that. I saw it like maybe once early on, and then I recently watched it before I started rehearsals. And yeah, I was like, oh, wow, yeah. There's something really wonderful about the movie because I feel like it probably means something to me, different than it would mean something to a woman, different than it would mean to somebody, to anybody else. I'm sure there's parts of the movie that you just go, oh God, like, I actually, should I be afraid or should I like be cheering on this young girl who is like now in power because of the issue that she has between her legs now. So it was interesting to watch because it is a really like, it's a piece to think about. If any good horror film does, it takes an allegory and it really like throws it in your face and makes you think. And I think that's a beautiful part of the movie and easily a beautiful part about the musical. There is a message. It's complex, but it's surrounded in this horror and comedy and music and grand performances.
Well, I was going to kind of compare it to what we were just talking about with Groundhog Day. You could look at it at the surface and think it's something very simple, but when you peel back the layers, there's a lot of message there. And so when you're diving into this character and starting rehearsals and getting deeper into the show, what's something that you found surprising about like discovering within your character and within the show itself?
Because some of the stuff I'm saying is so suppressive. I was like trying to be heavy with it and dramatic and like how do I keep everybody down? Do I have to be like mean and angry? And I don't know. It's just sort of this combination of finding a tone that's what he's saying he truly believes is an uplifting thing, even though it sounds awful. And I found, with other characters I've played, I realized like, oh, you can't really play into the anger of it. You have to actually find a way of believing in it, making it funny sometimes, or just making it so that it's like it's so ridiculous when he says it, and he so believes it that's the funny thing. It's like he so truly believes everything he says, and the things that he comes out of his mouth without a wink or a nod or being upset about what he says means, oh, this person is deranged. So I think I found that line with it. And of course, I go on to play other different characters that have different nuances to them. So I feel like I'm able to show everything I got in the show with the different characters I play. So there's a time and place for everything. It's just a matter of like finding what does this character do for the story and how can he do that the best possible way, and then move on to the next character.
Do you see any weird audience reactions at any particular moment, like consistently? Audience is just surprised like crazy because it's a smallish theater, right? It's 500 seat, stage one, New World Stages. So
New World Stages back there again. Yep.
Yeah, and so like, are you seeing at the same moment every time? You're always catching the audience off guard, or they're not expecting phallic objects to fall overhead, or things that traditionally we don't expect when we think of Broadway.
I think this whole show is unexpected. I think it's fantastic. I think it's true, which is, one of the reasons I was like, yes, I really want to do this. I needed this show. I needed something that was going to push some boundaries. I think a lot of the characters in the show say a lot of things that push people into an uncomfortable place in the audience. It's what's beautiful about it. And I think Michael R. Jackson and Anna K. Jacobs really like found this great way of making people uncomfortable, but also creating a great thematic story. What they can expect, I think, when people arrive and the first 4 rows put on ponchos to protect themselves from any splatter that's happening on stage, I think you're getting that initial like, oh, there's something going to happen tonight, and a giant drop that says teeth on it with a blood stain. You kind of feel like they're getting to this place where something's going to happen tonight, and I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I'm ready for it. And so the reactions we get from the actual like blood splatter and things that are happening on stage, some great technical things that have never been done in New World stages, and also a show that really like rides this great line of like Rocky Horror and Little Shop of Horrors and maybe like Jennifer's Body with Megan Fox. It sort of runs in those types of areas. Really, it's an experience. You kind of have to show up and see it and experience it. I think it's like Rocky Horror, when you have to go see Rocky Horror either live or at the movies, and everybody's gonna scream back at the screen, or they know their favorite part. I think Teeth is one of those shows that's just this classic strange show that people aren't expecting certain things to happen, and when they do, it's just they are thrown back, and I hear gasps from the audiences, and then laughs immediately after, and then just a wild rush at the end of the show, and everybody's just cheering on the dentata that has arrived. It's truly everything it's held in such a great way, this story, and when they get the release at the end, and it's just it's beautiful to watch the audience just go, oh my God, yes, I wasn't expecting this, but I'm here for it. And that's exactly how I feel taking the show.
It seems very on brand for what commercial off-Broadway is doing right now. And I'm all in for it. I love what commercial off-Broadway is doing, bringing these totally, like you said, boundary pushing, just unusual stories, things that you would have never thought would work, but are working like crazy. And they're making people laugh and think. And I love that something like this, at the surface, again, it seems like something very simple or even something ridiculously silly, but it makes people question their values around, like, what do I really think about religion, or what do I really think about sexual exploration, or especially I will never be able to identify with, as a young woman and growing up in the South myself, I saw how oppressed all of that was, and even in non-Southern states, I still see how oppressed that is. So just being able to let people walk away, laugh about something, and then still go, oh yeah, maybe I need to be a little different. I can be a little better. Yeah,
I think it was interesting after this, current election, the show that we did the next day was the cast, the young women in our cast were, certainly adding a certain something to the show. I think they had, it was really interesting to watch, and because it has such a comment on women empowerment in the show, that it's not, it's only heavy-handed in a way that it's like, it's horror heavy-handed. It's not like we're going to sit here and like tell every, man, you shouldn't do, it's like, no, we're going to bite your dicks off, and we're coming for you, which is hilarious and fantastical. So that's the sort of imagination that's going on, the magic that's happening on stage. But, there is a very strong message behind that. And it makes you try to say, like, I better like gird my loins and garner some respect. I think it's really interesting. It's really interesting. And I think any good horror film, and certainly any good musical about a horror film, really has to lean into the messages that it's trying to tell. And I think Teeth does it in a great way, where you're just like, you're cheering on and going like, yes, and laughing and grossed out at the same time.
I think the shock value softens the blow of the hard lessons that we walk away with. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. But now at this point in your career, you're working with, I love the saying, like, I keep getting older and everyone else stays the same age. You're working with people who are consistently coming out of college or are still younger. Are you seeing yourself shifting into more of a mentorship role, or like when putting yourself in the shoes of the young, of being young and looking up to the people you are working with, that of whose age you are now? What am I trying to get at? Are you seeing yourself in a different way, like more of a mentor now?
It's definitely a question. It's like shifting into certain things, because like, like I'm not going to play Link Larkin and Hairspray. I'm moving into roles that he's either the heavy or carries a certain amount of knowledge that can be, I don't know, spread around in a certain way. It's, I don't know, the roles are interesting and different, but I also find myself interesting and different now. So I feel like I'm aging well into things. What I can do for the cast, and it's hard to put yourself in a position of like, oh, I'm Andy Karl from Broadway. Let me, write this down, kid. I want to tell you something. I don't really approach it like that. I join a cast equally as creative and playful as somebody who's half my age. I want that space, and I have a little bit more experience in it, so I'm very playful, and I'm like, let's go, and let's try this, and let's try this. What's happening now in the workspace, which is cool, but it's adjustment for me, is that we are really making sure that everybody in the cast especially is heard and is not being pushed beyond the boundaries of what they're comfortable with, and I think the workspace is everywhere, not just in theater, but everywhere, is making sure that the priority is on the happiness of our people that are involved. So it's a little, it makes things more acceptable, creates more communication between people. But in my experience, I'm asking, like, is this okay if I do this? Is this okay I do this? Which I normally have been. It's just I'm highly aware of it now, and that's my learning curve as I grow into the new era of the workspace. But what I can offer, and what I am thrilled to watch happen, especially at being back in New World Stages after doing Altar Boys there 20 years ago, I sort of like, that was my spot to get noticed. Jerry Mitchell noticed me in Altar Boys, and then he offered me Legally Blonde in some of the readings, and created some characters there. And from that, somebody noticed that, and things sort of blossomed out of New World Stages in a way. It's a nice space where people can be discovered, and I'm happy for anybody that's in our cast now that has that moment. And there are some great performances happening from our young cast, and I think I'm just hoping everybody sees them and takes notice and pushes them into something that's what the next challenge in their careers. So it's a beautiful thing to watch that, and to also be back in that space, and again, like, just appreciating the people around me.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the episode.
Where I come from, especially in those times when we're all gathering together and making sure that everybody's heard, I offer this ability to say, we have the chance to, if I speak up, it's like, we have the chance to, we have this chance to express ourselves, and we have this chance to actually change our lives and other people's lives in this creative space. When what we're doing on stage matters so much. It matters so much to people who are seeing the show. We are a force, and we're a community of people that has an effect on the world.
That's why I love art in general. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. And anytime I can stand up and speak for a group as a whole, as a family, that can push through a lot, especially during tech rehearsals. We had a very short tech rehearsal. We had flames going off everywhere. We have giant walls falling and things coming from the ceiling. I said, let's all just make sure we check in and make sure we all are aware of everybody else on stage. Like, keep an eye out for your friend on stage who's next to you, and it's and be aware that things can go right, but they can also go wrong. So I've seen things go wrong so many times. So everybody just keep your eyes open, your heads on swivels. I appreciate and love you all, and this show can have a great effect on every one of you. I think once you leave this show, you'll realize that.
I like that you mentioned that everybody in the cast has a voice, everyone's listened to, everyone's heard, and I just looked it up real quick when we were talking, and Teeth has an intimacy director, Krista Marie Jackson, and that position, the first time I had ever heard of it really being used commercially, of having an intimacy director, intimacy coordinator, was Claire Warden in Slave Play, and that wasn't even all that long ago, right? So it's like, especially with something like this, where it's funny, it's there is some physical comedy, physical humor, but it's also of a very physical nature sexually, and so you've got to make everyone feel comfortable to do the same things eight times a week and make sure everyone's heard. And then like you can't do the same thing in the same way depending on who's playing the role because there's understudies and swings and blah blah blah, right? So you know, and I love that that's a thing. And how has that changed? You know, from early in your career to now of like carving out space for those types of situations.
I mean, it's hugely important, especially for this show. But we now, you know, in hindsight of awful things that have happened, especially in the Me Too movement, gave voice to that. Things that are unspoken. We now have people like our NMC coordinator to start a conversation so that no one's ever mistaken for doing something, and also no one's ever mistakenly not going to offer, you know, if they feel uncomfortable or if they feel like there was times where I was like, I don't know what I should ask, but she would start a conversation around it and then we would find it. And I think it's beautiful in a lot of ways because it just creates conversation around it. So people feel like they have a say in things that are happening to them, as opposed to, oh, this is what we're going to do, make it look good. And no, you guys got to get closer and push it together. Okay, great. And now we're moving on. It's more like, well, how'd you feel about that? And is this okay? Is really the questions. So I think it's, a necessary part of, especially the entertainment business, and I think it's a really good addition to the entertainment business, but certainly to this show, which Teeth does push these boundaries of, you know, sexuality, sexual purity, keep suppression of things, and then and then everybody just gets emasculated at the end. It's like this horrific, amazing, awful, wonderful, hilarious expression of, you know, anger at the end from the feminine perspective. So we all have to check in, and we all have to make sure we're doing okay. I think it's absolutely necessary for this show in particular. You know, I don't know if that's going to happen in like Mary Poppins or something. Maybe.
Yeah, slightly different show.
Who's the intimacy director for Mary Poppins?
Yes,
no one knows.
Yes, yeah, different story. Sounds like an adult spinoff of Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Okay, so wrapping up, there's a new segment that we do now that you didn't get to do in episode 4 called Plot in 60 Seconds. Do you know what this is?
Is it describing a plot of something in 60 seconds?
You got it. You're a smart guy. All right. So I'm going to put 60 seconds up on our screen here. And there we go. All right. So I have a list of 16 popular musicals. Actually, I'm going to add Altar Boys in here. So let's see. I'm going to randomly add Altar Boys. So maybe you'll get that one. All right. So now I have a list of 17 popular musicals. And you give me a list 1 through 17. It will correspond to a show. And you give me that plot in 60 seconds or less.
Let's do 17.
That is the show 6. Go.
60 seconds remaining.
6 women who were wives of King... I forgot the King George, maybe. All were wives and ex-wives. Some were beheaded, some were tortured, some had children with them. And it is their expression of what happened during their marriage, and in a pop, awesome, danced, tight, closely knit, vocally harmonized way.
And why should we care about these 6 women? What makes them unique?
They all have their own unique perspectives on what this king was about and how he made things impossible and or lovely, but also the perspective of a woman in a marriage with a aristocrat and someone who had less feelings for their personal welfare.
All right, I'll take it. Oh, stop. Ah, there we go. All right.
Who is the king? I can't. Oh, geez.
The King Henry VIII.
Henry VIII. Did I say George?
Yeah, you said King George, who was from Hamilton. Wrong musical.
Yep.
Was it which George was in Hamilton? Was it the first, second? I actually don't know. I need to be better at the histories.
The singing one.
The singing, yes, the singing one. The Jonathan Groff King George.
All right,
King George Groff. Then same 3 standard closing questions that we have now been doing for close to 400 episodes, and then we're gonna take your answers now because of course you're allowed to change. First one is this: what motivates you?
What motivates me? I would say it's a mix of passion and fun.
Passionate fun. What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
If you can not be so stressed about something and trying to get it right, and be as relaxed as you possibly can in order to play and create, that is the best part of your journey.
All right. If you can only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
As many times as I want. Is this movie? Is this theater? Is this
anything you want? That's what makes it super hard.
That's what makes it super hard. What's my favorite movie? I think I could pause and stop Deadpool Wolverine a bunch of times. I'm having a fun time with that. I keep watching it like over and over.
Okay, so this is so funny because I just pulled up the transcript for episode 4. You actually asked the same question: is this a theater show or a movie or something? And then you said the Who's Tommy on loop for 2 straight years.
Wow, that was a different time.
Different time back then. All right, so how can we connect with you on social media now?
Andy_Karl, Instagram and Twitter. There's a Facebook for Andrew Karl out there. Has my face on there. And go see teeththemusical.com, I believe. That must be the .com. It just Google Teeth the Musical.
It is teeththemusical.com. You are correct.
Perfect.
You are correct. Thank you, Andy. Again, it is so lovely to see you.
It's
now,
great to see you too.
400 episodes later. Jeez, man.
I know.
I'm tired.
Still, you're tired. 8 shows a week. No, just kidding.
Dude, I know. One day, I will guest star on Broadway as myself. I don't know. That's my only hope these days. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of play. Like I like passion, play, passion and play.